is the Celebrity Afterlife Report podcast.
Hello, it's me, the Celebrity Medium, your old buddy. Here once again with yet another edition of the Celebrity Afterlife Report, the only show on the internet that gives, and actually on radio too. I always say the internet, and I always forget that we're also on radio in the Los Angeles area. Anyway, it's the only show that gives you the up-to-the-minute gossip about all your favorite deceased celebs. Got good stuff for you today. I could kind of mess around and drag this out, but why don't we just get right to it? John Bonham, nicknamed Bonzo, was the drummer for Led Zepplin. He has been in the next world since late in the year 1980. According to my sources, he's been really reclusive pretty much all the time since his transition. He's been asked many times to play with other musicians, always turned them down, said thanks but no thanks. Just retired, I guess. Well, anyway, now comes word via my Afterlife paparazzi sources that Bonzo will soon be active again on the music scene. Last week, I told you a recent arrival to the next world, Tom Petty, announced that he had found a drummer and a bass player for his new band, the Earthshakers, so named because Petty says he wants them to rock so hard they will shake the earthly plane. Now, we still don't know who the bassist is, but we now do know that Bonham will be sitting behind the drum kit. So one of my sources tracked him down and asked him why he decided to join forces with Petty, and Bonham said, quote, "I've been laying low for a long time since I got here. A little while back it occurred to me that eternity is a long time, and that maybe I should get back into the scene. When Tom arrived, I thought it would be great to play with someone I really respect and just have some fun again," unquote. And I was kind of chuckling because I'm amused by the fact that it just occurred to him recently that eternity is a long time. I mean, I'm sure he knew that intellectually, but I guess he didn't really feel it. So anyway, he decided he's going to be back on the scene. That's what we know as of now. Don't know who the bass player will be, but we do know John Bonham will be pounding the skins. Last week I also told you that Donald Trump's father, Fred, who has his own checkered past, and his Nazi sympathizer friend, aviator Charles Lindbergh, have taken their pro-Trump cause out of the arenas and onto Next World cable television. They were doing shows in big stadia, which is the plural of stadium, and also arenas, and that didn't go so well, and I'll tell you about that in a second. Anyway, they're now doing a show that's been described to me as looking like a televangelist program, but is 100% about rallying support for Fred's son. All right. The reason, as I've told you, the two gave up the big public rallies was because at the last one they did, a mystery perpetrator released a pack of wild dogs into the stadium where they were in the midst of speaking to a crowd, which caused a lot of chaos. No injuries, nobody was hurt, but they were just running through the crowd, disrupting everything. So Trump and Lindbergh had to just kind of stop and wrap up the show. Well, whoever did that seems to have struck again. My sources tell me that they were in the midst of doing their new TV show, and Fred Trump had just introduced Lindbergh, who walked up to the podium to give, obviously, a pro-President Trump speech, when suddenly a side door to the studio opened, and another pack of feral canines came running in. Maybe it was the same pack. I mean, it's not like, they wear name tags or anything, which, of course, as you would expect, completely disrupted the entire show. Nobody knows who's doing this, or if they do, they're not telling. I am told by one of my sources who watched this thing live that the chaos that ensued in the studio was absolutely hilarious. Apparently, at one point, one of the dogs was humping Lindbergh's leg, and he was shaking the leg to... It just was crazy, and that put a rapid end to that thing. I also told you about former members of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir recruiting other former members to form a super choir which is designed to tour the next world and sing secular pop songs. There is, after all, no organized religion in the afterlife, so no Handel's Messiah, nothing in Latin, apparently. Now, this was the real breaking news in that story. I also explained that the existence of Mormons in the afterlife that I talk to you about every week refutes a basic belief, a core belief of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. That's the Mormon Church. And it's something that every Mormon gets taught, i.e. that when they transition from the earthly plane, they get his or her own planet to live on with their families. Now, that's not true if they're in the regular old next world that I talk about here all the time. They're not on their own planets. They're there with everybody else. Well, nobody who previously ran the church has addressed that to my knowledge, but there are some former church members who are objecting to the new gigantic choir, which is going to, they think will be composed of about 2,000 people when they contact everybody. They don't want the choir to use the name Mormon Tabernacle Choir in any form, as they feel it would be disrespectful to the choir, which is still on the earthly plane and still operated by the Mormon Church. So they're trying to come up with a new name. So some of the news outlets in the next world have set up kind of tongue-in-cheek public polls to pick a new name for the supergroup, or not a new name, but just a name. And the one I've heard about so far that made me laugh, as told to me by a source, is not the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Well, you know, it's not the Mormon Tabernacle Choir in that case, right? They're telling you that up front. Lastly, it hasn't even aired yet, but comedian Ralphie May's upcoming sitcom has had a major change in the casting already. We talked about this too. The producer's plan was to have an actor resembling Dat Fan play a member of Ralphie's fictional family or a friend of Ralphie's character on the show. Who's Dat Fan, you're saying? Well, Dat Fan is a Vietnamese comedian who came in first on the first season of Last Comic Standing and beat out Ralphie, who came in second. Now, Ralphie May went on to have a pretty successful career in comedy, and Dat Fan, just as far as I know, completely fell off the radar, just kind of disappeared. So, for whatever reason, the producers thought it'd be funny to have a character that looked like him and maybe even using that name. And Ralphie had a sit-down with the producers and said he thought that was a stupid idea and that there was no reason to drag Dat Fan into the show, and, you know, even if it wasn't him, just somebody playing him. He just thought it was completely unnecessary, and apparently after that meeting, the producers have given in on that. The word I'm getting is that there may still be an Asian character on the show, but they are no longer looking specifically for a Dat Fan lookalike, nor will anything about the character be a reference to Dat Fan. So, I guess the score is 1 Ralphie May and producers 0. And with that, I think I'm done here. I'm going to wrap this up for now. I'll be back next week. In the meantime, tell your friends, tell your family, tell anybody you run into, somebody you happen to be sitting next to on the bus, that the Celebrity Afterlife Report can be found in the Apple App Store. It can be found on the Google Play Store. It can be found on YouTube. And yes, it can be found on Inspirado Projecto Radio, which is aired at 1 p.m. on Mondays on K-Chung Radio, AM 1630, in the magnificent city of Los Angeles, in the magnificent state of California. Until we meet again, you have a great life for yourself, you know, do fun stuff. I'll see you next week. I am the Celebrity Medium. Thanks for listening.
You've been listening to the Celebrity Afterlife Report podcast. To ask a question about your favorite deceased celebrity, call 818-3-MY-DREAM. 818-3-MY-DREAM. 818-369-3732.